This is the Rocket City Retirement Show with Cris Wallace. Cris loves educating people in person and over the airwaves. Whether it's retirement planning, investing, tax, or legacy, Cris prides himself in helping protect what matters to you. This is the Rocket City Retirement Show.
Hi, I'm Luann Fulmer, and welcome to the Rocket City Retirement Show with my friend, certified financial planner, Cris Wallace. He's also president of WG Financial Group. The phone number, 256-937-2010. That's the way to reach out to Cris. Complimentary. You may call that number or even text the word visit, 256-937-2010, and get a complimentary discovery session. Find us on Facebook. Just look for WG Financial Group 256. Also, we're on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, so just search for the Rocket City Retirement Show. And find us online anytime at WGFinancialGroup.com. To all of our retirees, our motto, and this should be yours too, plan, retire, and play. So we're ready to get started. Hello, Cris.
Hey, Luann. How are you?
I am very good, very excited about our show today, Cris. We have a special guest joining us, Beth Andrews. And Beth is founder of Net Worth Advisors, LLC in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. She's a CPA and a certified financial planner, doing this for about 20 years, helping retirees. She's author of Net Worth for Retirement. Everyone deserves a confident, independent retirement. And she has her own radio show, the Net Worth Financial Hour in the Pittsburgh area, which, Cris, I know you were a part of. But first of all, Beth, Cris and I are so excited to have you on our show today. Welcome.
I am honored. Thank you.
You bet. So yeah, Cris, you were on her show and now she's on ours.
Yeah, I was. I was on just before the election, or a few weeks before the election, and it was a lot of fun. So Beth and I, we actually met at a conference. So my wife and I were at a conference, and I believe Beth and her sister were there, and we met them, and I just remember we stood outside and talked for what seemed like 45 minutes or something like that.
Yep.
I remember the bugs were kind of getting us a little bit. So we, eventually wrapped it up. But, my wife and I thought a lot about Beth. And while we were there, we were like, hey, you know what? We should just be guests on each other's show from time to time and just get a feel for what's going on in the PA area. And she can get a feel for what's going on down in Alabama. And it just brings another perspective from another advisor. And I love the fact that obviously she's a certified financial planner. She's also a CPA, but she's female. And that's a big deal in this industry because female advisors are hard to come by. And I know because I try to hire, them at the firm, and we only have one so far. Mm-hmm. So yeah, they're just hard to come by. And I just love the perspective and the way that they, what they bring to the table just from the female perspective. And so anyway, so welcome to the show, Beth. Glad to have you.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be your female counterpart, and I'll give you advice anytime, just as I've learned so much from you.
I appreciate that. No, I appreciate that. Awesome.
Okay,
well,
so,
Luann,
yeah.
You want to kick it off? I know we've kind of got some things we want to cover.
Yeah,
so
I know our listeners are going to be so excited to hear you guys and our discussion today. I think I'll start with you, Beth. Just tell us what it's like if I were to come into your office for the first meeting. What is that like?
A lot of times people are nervous for that very first office visit, but really there's nothing to be nervous about. We give you a list of things to bring in so you're well prepared. We might give you some ideas for discussion like, hey, speak to your spouse and make sure that you're both on the same page for retirement. And then we sit down and have a confidential conversation. It's a very good environment.
I love it.
Sounds a lot like ours.
It does.
I think when people come to the office, I believe sometimes they're a little bit nervous. And like Beth, we provide a list as well. And it ends up being really more of just a conversation, Beth. I'm sure that when you get families or individuals in the office, you have a way of just kind of putting them at ease. And then it just becomes a conversation about what they're trying to do in retirement, I would imagine, right?
There's a lot of emotions that go into money. So yes, I think making a very good personal connection with your financial advisor in general is really, really important. We're talking about all the money you have in the whole world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wish it was all the money in the whole world, but it's all the money in the world according to that family, right?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, when you're talking to somebody, is there anything that you kind of say that you think kind of helps put them at ease? Is there something that you do just to kind of let them know, hey, it's okay? I like what you said earlier about everything's confidential. I think that's important today with so much breaching happening. The fact that everything you talk about is confidential, which is the same in our office. But is there anything else you feel like you do that just kind of helps people just relax when they come in the office?
Absolutely. I remember the first time my husband and I went to see a financial advisor. We were really young, and the guy just looked at my husband, Todd, and not at me, and I'm the CPA. And so I make sure that I involve both parties in the conversation if there are two parties, and I make sure that we connect money to what's really important to you. And sometimes it takes a little bit of a conversation to uncover that, but it's worth it because we want to make your money do what you want it to do.
You mentioned something a few seconds ago. You talked about a lot of emotions with money, and that is so, so true. And then being able to connect money with what's important to you, I think is really good. But the main thing that you just hit on, and I didn't even have this kind of in our show notes or show prep, but you must involve both parties. Because if you're sitting there talking to who you think is quote unquote the decision maker, because that's how salespeople are trained. They're trained to focus on the decision maker, but you just hit on something. A lot of times the spouse that's not saying much, and it can be the wife or it can be the husband, when they're not saying anything, sometimes their body language and their facial expressions will say a lot. So to your point, excellent point there. You must involve both spouses. And I have a quick funny story. So I have one, these guys, these are actually clients of mine. And they came in the office the other day. It was so funny. We were just doing a review, and his wife was basically playing games on her phone because that's what she does when she comes to the office. It's totally fine. He handles everything. He does everything. And so we get up to leave the meeting, and we're walking down the hall, and I was like, yeah, have a great weekend. Really nice to see you guys again. And she looks at me and she said, Chris, thank you for having me. And I just learned so much today. And she sounded so serious, but I know she was joking because she was on her phone playing games.
Gosh.
But when she said that, I busted a gut in the hallway. It was so funny. So yes, focus on both spouses, not just one who you think is making decisions. Great points.
And you never know, Chris. Maybe she was focusing. Maybe she's, somebody couldn't do that, two things at once. Maybe she was.
She might have been doing some listening, but I knew the joke. I got her joke and her sense of humor. It was it was hilarious.
I learned so much. Oh my gosh, that's funny. All right. Another question for you, Beth, is your planning process is called the retirement GPS process. So why don't you walk us through what that process looks like and how you feel it does help others to feel more confident in retirement?
Sure. So my partner and I named the Net Worth Retirement GPS after the GPS in our car because it does exactly the same two things that your GPS in your car does. It tells you where you are right now. Got to know where your starting point is. And it tells you step by step how to get to your destination. So with a retirement plan, you got to know what your overall financial condition is to begin with. Where do you stand? What's your tax liability? Do you have enough money? What's your plan for income? And then you got to go through step by step and lay out all those building blocks. Now, we've got a lot of engineers in our city, and they like to go over every single last detail. And there's pages and pages of it. But we've also got people like my best friend, who's a retired Methodist minister. And she says, give it to me on one page, Beth. We got that in there too.
So you have a lot of engineers in Pittsburgh?
Oh my, yes. A lot of robotics.
Oh my gosh. Like you, Chris.
Yeah, no, I guess I didn't know that. Huntsville is just crawling with engineers, and we like to poke playful fun at them on the air with all their spreadsheets because they're into the details, they're into the numbers. And I always kind of say that they're up late at night, kind of combing through their spreadsheets on when to claim Social Security and how they're spending money and what the portfolio returns are going to be. So it's interesting to know. I actually didn't know that there were a lot of engineers in Pittsburgh. So that's really cool.
Yeah. So when you are looking through your financial plan, it's got to speak to you. It's got to tell the story to you. And if there aren't enough details in there for the engineers, they're not going to take it as fact. And if it's too overwhelming for the non-engineers, then it's just never going to get implemented.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. It's got to talk the same language that people are used to hearing. And engineers are 100% about data. And like you, we're a very data-driven firm, but we also know how to speak in other languages other than spreadsheets and numbers.
Right. How to relate. Well. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's you want to make sure somebody's retirement obviously is going to be okay, but sometimes you do have to speak that different language. So that's a very interesting point. I actually didn't pick up on that when we met you.
Yeah. And, we had talked about managing money. And I think that's one important point that the Net Worth Retirement GPS helps us manage money for our clients. And it's not that we want to have all the money in-house. We don't have to have it all in-house, We have most of it in-house, but we want to be able to get the implementation done for you. That's why we manage money for our clients, similarly to how you do.
Yeah. We use a process, as you know, called the Rite Retirement process. So it covers some of the same elements. But I love the GPS analogy. I just think that's really cool. And Beth, I don't know how old you are. I didn't ask. That's very rude of me to ask, so I'm not going
59.
to ask. Okay. Well, I was going to say we're in the same age bracket, so I'm going to give you a compliment. I'm 51. So, and so we're close enough. So here's the deal. I always talk about, when we talk about GPS and maps and going places, do you remember the Rand McNally, like paper maps that you would buy at the gas station? They were huge. Do you remember? Did you have those when you were?
Oh yes, and
okay.
fumble around with them and they get all wrinkled up and ripped. Yes.
Yes. Okay. You got me. Okay. So you'd highlight your trip, and I would have mine folded in half and stuck down in between the seat. And sometimes you couldn't pull it out, and you're trying to do that and drive. It's that was the old texting and driving. You'd pull the Rand McNally out in your lap, and that's the old cell phone, if you will. So yeah, awesome.
All right. So you mentioned that income planning is the very first step in your process. Tell us why you think this is or needs to be the first step then. And then explain the importance of establishing an income plan, Beth. Is there a certain amount of guaranteed income you like to see or build into a plan? Tell us about all that.
Yeah, so that's really the art of financial planning, is making sure that the income plan fits the needs of the person that you are working with. You know, sometimes people have one or two Social Securities in the household. Sometimes they're lucky enough to have a pension, and maybe that covers all of their income needs. Most of the time it doesn't. So we need to build in a source of income that they can really depend on to make sure that they have enough to cover their needs. And we do that for their base spending. And then we also make sure that it keeps up with inflation over the years. We do it using a couple different techniques. We do some layering of income. We do some income that grows over time. But yeah, why is this the most important first step? Because everything else builds on your income plan. You know, if you've got your basic needs covered and you do it in a really efficient way, maybe there's a little more money left over to do something fun with or leave to your family. That's the base of the plan.
Yeah. And I think also something we talk about on the show a lot is when you're building your income plan and you're doing that with predictable, sustainable income streams, then the remainder of the portfolio can really be positioned more in a growth manner at that point, because you're not needing those funds right away. And if you've covered the basics with good streams of income, you've essentially increased your investment time horizon. So it sounds like you and I kind of use the same strategies there as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Make sure that your income's not exciting, but your investments can be exciting. Your income should be boring and your investments should be exciting.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Yeah, your income can be pretty boring as long as it shows up. You know, that's all you needed to do. You needed to show up every month or every 2 weeks, however much you have it spaced out.
Right. Definitely have to have that income. And honestly, Social Security is a big part of income planning. All right. And we need to understand it and which is going to work for us as far as our claiming strategy. So I want to hear what you think, Beth. Do you think individuals or even families should wait to collect Social Security? And if they wait, do they wait just to full retirement age or 70 or do you recommend it as soon as they turn 62?
You know, it's a very individualized decision, but being a CPA, I have to talk about the tax part of it. So in current law, Social Security is less heavily taxed than other sources of income. So if everything else was equal, taking it at 62 or taking it for retirement age or taking it at 70, taking it at 70 is more advantageous to you tax-wise because now you've got a bigger income that is also less heavily taxed. And in my household, my father passed away several years ago. I can't believe it's been 7 years.
Aww.
And so when my mom and dad went from 2 Social Securities in the household to now my mom is a single filer, her tax rate went up because single filers pay more in taxes for the same amount of income. But she had taken over my father's Social Security, as you would normally do when a person passes away. The higher benefit stays. And so now she has a higher Social Security amount that is less heavily taxed. And my mom and dad had decided to wait to take their Social Security. So on top of those factors, my dad's Social Security had grown to a bigger amount before he passed away. So Social Security is an income strategy, definitely different for single people rather than married people. Health concerns come into play, but you also want to think about how all those pieces of that plan fit together. Social Security is also a tax planning strategy and a survivorship strategy.
Wow. You know what? Man, I'm just sitting over here just grinning like a Cheshire cat right now. Ear to stinking ear. Luann, who does that sound like?
You.
Almost verbatim.
I know.
And so I'm going to Google how far is Huntsville from Pittsburgh, and I'm going to tell you how far away we are from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. How far?
And yet, how close?
Yeah. So we are 10 hours and 40 minutes, 670 miles from Pittsburgh right now.
Oh my.
The reason I bring this up is that was almost verbatim what I say on the air. So number one, it's very tax efficient because this is, what I say is, hey, only 85% of it is subject to taxation. There's 15 that's basically not taxed at worst case. And then protecting that spouse. Oh my gosh, that's so important. And those, in my opinion, and it sounds just like in yours as well. I'm so excited right now. I can't hardly talk. That those seem like your top two things as well. And that's the same way that we plan in the Huntsville area is tax first, really tax and protect that spouse first is really what we're about, and not necessarily the break even.
It's amazing how all the areas of financial planning touch each other. And that was 4 areas of financial planning in one strategy.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that sounds a lot like the Rubik's Cube analogy that we use a lot, Luann.
Yes, doesn't it though?
They all can touch each other. So
Yeah.
excellent. I'm so happy. I mean, that was totally, we kind of had some show notes. I had no idea she was going to go down that path. So validation, there we go.
Yeah, validation, right? Yeah.
No prior
right.
coaching involved.
No.
That's right. Awesome.
So since you're so big on tax planning, because you are a CPA, is there any more you want to say about, why you feel tax planning, tax strategies are so important in retirement?
Well, it's one of those things that Ed Slott, my mentor, the leading CPA in America, says is if you don't have a tax plan, it's going to be the biggest bill you ever have. And I really agree with that. You're not in control of how much you get taxed, but you are in control of how you act within the tax environment. So I say you can be proactive about your taxes. You can have a known tax bill and you can address it, or you can have an unknown tax bill. Who the heck knows what tax rates are going to be in the future? There's people that say they're going to be a lot higher. There's people that say that Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is going to be extended and we're going to have the same tax rates for a long, long time. If that's the case, perhaps they then tax us in other ways like sales tax. Maybe it turns into the flat tax that's been mentioned. Maybe they do or they don't tax our Social Security. Maybe they tax it heavier. But the point is, taking control of your tax situation is addressing it in a proactive way, working with a tax professional, like somebody who's licensed as a CFP or as a CPA. You can ignore the problem and just let it get bigger over time. Think about how much money you had when you were in your 20s and 30s. Not nearly as much as you have now, I hope. And so now that's a tax problem that's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Address it while it's little.
Yeah. And I think from a strategy standpoint, and why this is important, obviously, is all of the things she said is 100% true. But here's an example. So I just happened to be working on a case before the show. So I have a client who is in the 12% marginal bracket. So we're going to take advantage of converting some Roth, from traditional to Roth in the 12. So we're trying to determine how we're going to pay the tax on this. So are we going to pay this from a savings account? Are we going to just kind of let the IRA withhold taxes within the IRA conversion so that the taxes are paid that way? But one of the things that this individual has is they have some long-term capital gains in one of their accounts, non-IRA accounts. And so the strategy that I built out was they can actually sell off about 10 grand, or actually right around 8,000 of long-term capital gains. And by doing that, it actually will save them. They can use that money where they sell the positions at a 0 capital gains rate. So basically they didn't pay any tax on it, and actually cuts their tax bill down by about $1,000. So this is why tax planning is really, really important. Now, this individual, when they sent the notes to me, because I asked for some specific information to make sure that I had the numbers to be able to kind of say, okay, I think we should lean this way. They could have very easily just done it themselves. And because they were working with someone like myself, someone like Beth that understands this stuff, he's going to end up being able to save, roughly around $1,000. It doesn't work out that way for everybody, but this is why you look at it. This is why you do the planning part of it, to see if there's any opportunity to, like I was doing here, going to sell some capital gains at 0% and really help the individual out. So tax planning is important.
All right.
That is what I call tax leverage. I love it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's good. I'm envious you're a CPA, but hey, I try to think like one.
Understanding the problem is really the biggest part of getting the best out of your financial situation. So if you understand where you're at, we use a complicated simulator for taxes. I'm sure, Cris, that you do something very similar to that. Sometimes I just draw it out as, from the tax table, but I just really want the client to understand, because I don't want them to walk out of the office and say, man, that Beth Andrews, she made me pay a bunch more in taxes this year. Sure is expensive working with her. No, you're paying it at a discount.
There you go.
For sure. And then also, if you can save a client on taxes, to me, that's kind of like justifying your existence as an advisor in a way. Because I think there's a lot of people that listen to the show and they say, gosh, I don't want to pay my advisor. I don't want to pay the 1% or whatever they charge, and I think if you're able to bring that extra value add to the table, I just think it helps you with, with just being able to say, hey, listen, we bring a lot more to the table than just a fee.
Yeah, it's the most rewarding thing that I do is putting my clients in a better financial position. What better way to make a living than making someone's financial and emotional and other parts of their life better?
For sure.
All right. And honestly, that's what the show is all about. We thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Lou Ann Fulmer here with Cris Wallace, and this is the Rocket City Retirement Show. But our special guest today is Beth Andrews, and she is founder of Net Worth Advisors, LLC in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And she's a CPA and a certified financial planner, as is Cris, a certified financial planner. So we're having a great discussion about how they each help their retirees in their separate businesses. And of course, so excited to have you along with us today. I want to move into now kind of talk about post-election and how you've been experiencing this with your clients, Beth. Does there seem to be an element of stability, maybe psychologically, since we have results that not everybody was sure of? Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, glad's over. we're in the very western end of the state, so we're in the very conservative portion of the state. And I think that our clients are looking back with relief, and I think they're very happy with the election results. When you've got the House and the Senate and the president in one party, you get things done. And I really think that people in this area want things to get done. We want progress to get made. I know that we got to have a balance of power, but, we don't want to have a stalemate. We want to make progress in a good, constructive direction. We do want to work with the other party. We're not really polarized here. We're open to other ideas. But I think that moving forward after the election, that everyone's just ready to work their financial plan. If they've got more risk in their plan now, just because the market has responded so positively, some of them are really, really happy with that. Let's keep going. Let's keep these high returns coming. And some of them are like, well, time to take the chips off the table. We're a little older now than when we first met, Beth. And we've made some gains in the market, and we're going to take the chips off the table. Very individualized. I would say more people are interested in taking the chips off the table and being a little on the safer side.
Yeah, I think, like you, Beth, I'm just glad it's over. I think we did a show. Actually, we recorded the day of the election, and I told Luann, I was like, we won't know for weeks. And man, by like 2:00 that next morning, we knew the results there. I was
glad,
yeah. And I think, as far as our office is concerned, the people that we're coming into contact with, I think there's some relief, obviously. I think the one thing that we can all get on board with, whether you're on the right or the left, I don't really care, but deregulation and then the DOGE and trying to become more efficient with how the government spends money and just kind of auditing that and being more transparent with the American people and the tax paying dollars that we're paying and putting that out for everybody to see. I mean, how can you argue with that? I don't see how anybody cannot get on board with that. And again, don't care what side of the fence you're on. That's all good stuff. And I think that there's a positive outlook right now, for sure.
I think there's very positive outlook. I 100% agree with everything that you're saying. When this was all swirling around during and but way before the election, we were trying to coach our clients to focus on things that they can control. You know, you could vote, and I vote, of course, everybody on my team votes, but you can't control the outcome of the election. You can't control global pandemics or the weather or what the market does, but you can build your financial plan so that it's solid, so that when these events inevitably come along, whether they're good events or bad events, that you take advantage of the good and you don't get hurt by the bad.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, that's the same message we preach as well. It's like there's just control what you can control. And what I think individuals and families can control today is their financial plan. So build your financial plan so that it works in up markets and down markets. Also understanding, and I think this is kind of to some of your point there, is like the president's only going to be in office for 8 years at best. And in Trump's case, he's only going to be in office for 4 years because he's already been in office for 4 years. So we don't know what's going to happen like long term. So we have to think as a planner, and you know this, Beth, we have to think further past that. You know, this next 4 years, if there's great growth, well, fantastic. We'll all hopefully reap the benefits of that. But then there's the rest of your life you got to worry about, and what party's going to be in office and what are the laws and rules going to be at that time. You know, that's the stuff we don't know. And that's where you have to have a pretty good solid financial plan in place. Beth, I want to get your opinion on something real quick. Do you think there'll be an extension to the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act?
You know, I think it's a lot more likely now after this election. It did take an act of Congress to change it, to start the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. It had not been updated, fully revamped since 1986. That's the tax code I studied in college. And so I think it will be a heavy lift. But yeah, in my opinion, I think moving forward, it could get extended.
Yeah, and this is something we really didn't discuss in show notes, but do you think you're in favor of a flat tax? What are your thoughts there? I'll tell you my opinion as well.
A consumption tax would probably tax people in lower incomes situations more heavily on a higher percentage than people in higher income situations, because people that earn more save more. So I think it would be kind of unfair.
I think maybe so. I like the idea of it, but then I think you could have certain income limits. So, you know, for example, you make less than 50,000, you're not paying the same level above 50,000.
Yeah,
like that.
So, but anything to simplify the code, I think would just be really, really helpful. So
that's why CPAs are in business.
Yes,
right.
That's exactly right. That's why they have a job, right? So, all right. Well, Beth, you know what? We're nearing the first half of the show. It has been awesome having you on the show. We'll have to do this again. It's been fun. I look forward to seeing you at future conferences. And of course, if you're listening to this show on a Sunday morning on the way to church, this is the first half of the show. And if you want to catch the whole episode, then you can hop out to Apple Podcasts or to Spotify platforms and listen to the whole episode there. Hope you're having an awesome and blessed day so far. And our number, if you'd like to call and set up a discovery session with me, that's 256-937-2010, 256-937-2010.
If you're pondering the longevity of your retirement savings with questions like, is my nest egg sufficient? Or how long will my retirement funds last? Consider scheduling a session with Cris Wallace. Text VISIT to 256-937-2010. Again, text VISIT to 256-937-2010 now to set up your appointment.
Quarters, just 25 cents. That's hardly anything, right? But Cris Wallace and his team at WG Financial see quarters a little differently. A quarter is a lot when it's a quarter of your retirement savings. Now, do you want to pay 25% or more in taxes during your retirement? Well, Cris can create a plan to help address that. Now, if the only time you think about taxes is when you file them, you don't have a tax strategy. But it's not too late to get one with the help from Cris Wallace. So act now to make sure you're not paying a quarter, dime, or even a penny more than you should. Call Cris Wallace and his team at WG Financial at 256-937-2010 to schedule your personalized tax strategy session. A quarter saved is a quarter earned. Call 256-937-2010 now. That's 256-937-2010. Investment advisory services made available through AE Wealth Management, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Firm may not give tax advice.
With so many worries in life, market volatility shouldn't be on your list. Help ensure your retirement plan is stable and independent of market swings. just get in touch with Cris Wallace at 256-937-2010. That's 256-937-2010 to start planning.
Hi, you're listening to the Rocket City Retirement Show. I'm Lou Ann Fulmer, here with my friend Cris Wallace, who is a certified financial planner, and he's also president of his firm, WG Financial Group, where they help retirees plan out a retirement. In fact, their motto is plan, retire, play, and that is what we want for you, to plan out your retirement, have that plan. And then once you retire, just play, play, play. The phone number, 256-937-2010. That's the way to reach out to Cris. Complimentary. If you prefer texting, we have that available for you too. Just text the word visit to 256-937-2010 and you can set up an appointment that way. All right. So if you think about it, every morning when we wake up, we're faced with questions, right? I don't know. What's your first question? My first question is, when do I really have to get out of bed? I don't
Mine
know.
is
What's
the
yours?
coffee question.
Yeah. Is coffee made?
No, it's not. I'm kind of a snob when it comes to coffee, honestly. I like to grind the beans fresh.
Aha.
And
Okay.
so, yeah. So Jen will sometimes make it at night. I don't say anything because you pick your battles, right?
Come on. It's still fresh, Cris.
Yeah.
8 hours fresh. You
Yeah.
are
All
so
right.
funny.
I hope she doesn't hear this episode. She'll say, "What are you doing?"
She's gonna go,
No,
"What?"
but she gets it all ready and
Yeah,
everything, and I'm
see?
like, "Oh, can we just grind the beans
You
in
are
the
so
morning?"
hilarious.
I'm over there shaking. Don't do it.
Oh my gosh, that's
Yeah.
funny. Okay, so that's your question in the morning. All right.
It's always coffee
Is
related.
Coffee, yeah.
Mhm.
Coffee. Is it done? Yeah. Or do I have to grind the beans?
Well,
All right.
what type? What kind am I going to have? Because I have
ooh.
several different types. That
You
way I don't
do?
get bored with it. And then some days I like to go grab a Dunkin'. I'm a huge Dunkin'
yeah,
fan. So.
that's right. You are.
Speaking of, real quick, before I forget, so
Mhm.
before we really get into this, because here's another decision. I'm a foodie, all right?
Yes,
So,
yes.
like, the lunch decision is big.
Oh,
So,
like in the
it's-
morning, you're thinking lunch?
I'm thinking about dinner.
Oh, okay.
In the
Oh, how
morning.
funny.
All right, so we cater in lunch every Monday for the employees, which is
Ooh.
something we do.
Fun.
And so we were picking last week, and so my administrative assistant, well, actually front office manager Casey's like, "Okay, what do you want to do this week?" And I said, "Hey, you know what? I want pizza. That's what I want. I want pizza." So there is a great place in Madison called Lost Pizza. I'm not a paid sponsor. I'm not getting free pizzas by talking
now
about
you
this.
might. No.
Well, I just don't want them to get lost on the map because Lost Pizza is really, really good. And so
Really?
yes, I've had it a couple times. All right. I think the pizza is really good. My staff thinks it's good. Probably they're not in love with it like I am, but I'll tell you what we are in love with is that dessert pizza that they have.
Uh-huh.
And so I can't remember the name of it. So again, this is why they're not paying me to be a sponsor, because I can't remember the name of their dessert pizza. But I think it's something to do with strawberry. It's like Strawberry Fields or something like that.
Okay.
You must try that,
Mm.
especially here at the holidays. You're going to have families coming in.
Mm.
Oh crap! You will not. You can't thank me enough for this.
You
I'm
will not
telling
be
you, it is so
disappointed.
good. My son was at the office yesterday. He works at the company as well. So he was at the office, and we got home last night. He's like, "Dad, that dessert pizza was so good." I'm like, "Yeah, it was awesome." So Lost Pizza, if you haven't checked it out, give it a look. It's definitely worth it.
Oh gosh, it sounds delicious. Okay, so now that we've gone through all of the questions that Cris asks in the morning, there are lots.
Coffee, dinner.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. There are lots of at lunch. Yeah, lots of questions that we ask as we're approaching retirement. Of course, that's what our show is usually about. But every once in a while, we go on tangents and talk about various things like food. But I want to talk right now about the questions that people should be asking Cris as they get close to retirement. What do you think those are?
Yeah, so I think some of the questions, obviously, the obvious ones are, when can I retire? Do I have enough money saved? Will my money last? That's a big one that a lot of people are worried about. But I think one of the things that I think that every family needs to think about is if there's a spouse that passes. So will my loved one be okay? So if one of you passes away, either way, or is the survivor one okay? And I think that needs a lot of emphasis as well. And there's a lot of so Beth in the first segment mentioned that there's a lot of emotion tied in with money. And it's so true, Luanna. We talk about it. There's a movie called The Psychology of Retirement, which I'm an executive producer on. There's just a lot of there's just a lot of psychology when it comes to money and retirement. And it does take, for some people, as you kind of roll through these questions, there's this, amount of stress that goes on in your brain, but it takes you a little while to get into what I call the retirement rhythm. So when you retire, to get in that rhythm of being retired. I'm an old basketball player, and there were, certain games where you just got in the rhythm, man, and you couldn't miss. I mean, the hoop was like the size, it felt like it was the size of a football field. I could throw and it would, no matter what, it goes in. And so I was in a nice rhythm. And I think it takes a little while for you to get into that rhythm in retirement and really develop that retirement rhythm. So the other thing that I think people should be doing or thinking about when they're getting close to retirement is like, what am I spending? Because right now there's a lot of people listening to the show, Luann, who are just spending money because they have enough income. And I like to say that income covers up sin. So if you make so much money, you don't really worry about having to budget because you have enough money there and you're not spending all that you're bringing in. A lot of it goes into savings. In retirement, you are going to need to know that number. So I think I like to call it batting practice. So as you're, gearing up for retirement, start doing some batting practice, start checking on what you're spending, verifying that. I have people that'll check their spending for, many months before they retire so they can kind of gauge where they're at, just to make sure that we have enough income and that we can generate enough income from the investments to cover all of that spending. So those are just some things that I think people should be thinking about.
Love it. Okay. So we know that when people come see you for the first time, a lot of their questions are this: have I saved enough? Because they want to know, hey, am I going to be able to retire soon? Right.
Yeah. And you say coming to see me for the first time, it's becoming more and more that they're not really seeing me for the first time because now we've been on TV for so long that a lot of people see us on TV. They see us at events that we do. They hear us on the radio. But yes, when they come in, one of the key things is, have we saved enough? And one of the ways that we really look at if they've saved enough is we use planning softwares to do that. So we do a lot of retirement modeling to make sure that they do have enough saved, what's going to go out the door in the way of expenses. What does the tax picture look like? I talked about in the first segment of a case that I was kind of working on previous to the show. And, what's really the best way to save, to save on taxes? Are there other buckets we can pull and save from? And I think Beth called it tax leveraging. Can we do some of that? This is what we're trying to do. I guess in answering the question, have they saved enough, is really put together that plan, model it out, look at the tax picture, throw some inflation on there, throw some bear markets and recessions in there, and then do we have enough saved? And that's how we come to the conclusion on whether or not you can actually retire. And I'm in favor at the office. You know this, Luann, because we've done radio now for like 8 years, but I'm in favor of just going a little bit more conservative, because if I sit down with a family and they're hiring me to work with them in retirement and they're essentially saying, hey, we want you to be our retirement partner, then I have to have a really good confidence level that when I'm telling them they can retire, they can retire. So there are certain things that I will do in the plan to kind of stress it a little bit harder, just to make sure.
Yeah.
Add in, I've heard it was Morgan Housel in the book Psychology of Retirement, or Psychology of Money, rather, not the movie. The movie Psychology of Retirement. Psychology of Money is the book, of which he's in both of them. But he talks about in his book building in margin, and I think that's really important. That in a retirement plan, it's important that you build in margin to your retirement plan, because it's not going to be. You're not going to have like this linear retirement where everything's going to be in a perfect straight line. You're going to have things that wiggle and move. And so you need to have margin built into that retirement plan.
Mm-hmm. So true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, okay. So what about this? As far as income goes, how many sources of income do people typically have?
Well, here in Huntsville, there's a lot of big companies, obviously. And there's also a large concentration of federal employees, of which we have several federal clients internally. And if you're fortunate enough to be federal, military, or with a big company for a long period of time, you're going to have two. You're going to have your Social Security and you're going to have a pension. But the vast majority of the United States now is just going to have Social Security, and that's basically it. So there was the whole corny saying about the three-legged stool. I used to think that was really corny, and I still think it's a little bit corny, but it is really true. Back in the old days, you had pension, you had Social Security, and you had your savings. So you had this nice three-legged stool. Well, with pensions really going away and probably less than 20% of companies now in the United States offering pensions, it's now really the responsibility of the employee to save. And I've run into situations before, Luann, where the company is not matching. And so their employees like, well, I'm not putting in because I'm not getting a match. I'm like, well, you're only hurting yourself and you still have to save for your retirement. So not having that pension means that you have to really account for that. So your main sources for most people, Luann, are just going to be Social Security and what you have saved. And it's important that you're saving early and often. It's important that you're running some modeling projections to make sure that you're on target. I run them for myself. A lot of people know I have my own financial plan. There are targets that I want to hit every year. And Jennifer and I have kind of an agreement between us as a husband and wife is there's no more stupid mistakes with us. No more dumb purchases. Everything's very calculated. We're really working our way towards debt free. We don't have any excess debt other than the house, and I'm at a 2.75 interest rate, so I'm probably not in any hurry to pay that off because I can get a positive arbitrage with money elsewhere. But those are the type of things that I'm doing, in my early 50s. At 51 is like, how do I position myself so that when I get to retirement, not that I want to retire, but I want to know that I can retire. And I think as you're building that out and you're looking at your sources of income, you want to build out a plan where you know that when you get ready, you can walk away. And I think that's important. So in other words, what I'm saying here to kind of sum this up, the income sources are going to basically be Social Security and what you have saved. And when you're building your retirement plan, I think everybody should consider building a plan that they can retire earlier than anticipated because you never know.
Right. Okay. Very good. Let me give out your information. 256-937-2010. If you need some guidance with your retirement, give Cris a call. You can even text the word visit if you like to text. Do it that way. Get on their calendar. Text the word visit 256-937-2010 and get some guidance on your retirement. That's what this show is all about. He and his team are here ready to help you to plan. Get that written plan for retirement and then figure out when can you retire? Have you saved enough? And then there you go. Play once you're in retirement. So this is what we want for you. And the other thing I want to tell you about is head to wgfinancialgroup.com. You can find out even more about Cris there and more about the entire team at WG Financial Group. Thank you so much for joining us.
The other thing that we're doing, Luann, we've had some interest from some local companies, defense contractors, that really want us to come in and just do like a lunch and learn.
Oh yeah, we got to get that in there. Yeah,
and talk about like what we do as a firm. But not only that, really more importantly, is tell the employees of that company, here's what you should be doing right now to prepare yourself for retirement. So the story. I've told it a million times, and you know me on a more personal level. I didn't have a money mentor. I didn't have a person coming in. Outside of with my parents, I didn't really learn much from investing from my parents, and that's no disrespect to them. I love them dearly. But even if they had known, I probably wouldn't have listened the same. So sometimes you hear things from a TikToker or a YouTuber and you're like, wow, that's really good information. And it's probably some of the same information you already knew. You just heard it in a really cool format and you're like, wow, they really resonated with me. So sometimes having myself come in and talk to a group of people and say, did you know you had this benefit inside your health plan? Did you know that you could put this in your 401k and this is how much you can put in? And this is why you should do that, because I've sat with people that couldn't retire and they had to work longer. So these are the things you should be doing today to prepare for the tomorrow. So we've had a lot of interest in that. And so that's just something else that we offer to the community as well. I don't charge to do that. So I just come out and I'm a guest there for an hour and we'll provide some sandwiches and, we go from there.
Oh, love it. Love it. Love it. All right. Thank you for joining us. This is the Rocket City Retirement Show with Cris Wallace. And saving money for retirement is one thing, but it's a whole different ballgame to make sure it lasts. And, we always talk about how we don't know where that finish line is in retirement, Cris. So talk about that. How do you help people ensure that they're not going to outlive their savings?
Well, first of all, obviously you build the plan, and we're talking about when does the money run out? When does life run out? So many people bet against themselves. So many people bet against themselves. You know, especially men, they come in the office and they're like, you're running me to 92. I'm not living to 92. And, you know, they're kind of laugh about it. I'm like, well, if, you know, you and God want to work out a deal where he can check you out at 85, I'll and let me know and give it to me in writing that you're gone at 85. I'll move the little slider down to age 85 and we'll call it, you know, good. But the reality is most of us are going to live a longer than average life expectancy. That is the literal reality. There's, you know, better information available today. There's so many things that when you look at the what it takes to live longer. So we know that smoking decreases that.
Yeah.
We know that weight increases that. So diet and exercise is really, really important. You know, not smoking, not excessively drinking, being social. So a lot of our clients are, you know, a lot of them are Christian and they're volunteering in the communities with their church. I know my father does Habitat for Humanity and he does some other things with his church. But those things help because they give you a sense of purpose. So I've got one of my clients, he actually volunteers, I think at a dog shelter, and I don't remember which one. He's told me, and forgive me, I don't know. And he's a great client. And he does volunteering there. As a matter of fact, he came out of the office the other day and he emailed me. He said, hey, I'm going to come out of the office, but I may smell like dog. And I'm like, it's no problem. I got a very large dog at the house. I'm totally fine with dogs, but cats I'm a little bit allergic to. But what he told me as he was leaving, we were talking about his volunteering. I think it's great that he's doing that. And he said, you know, I feel really appreciated when I'm there. And you can tell that they really appreciate me. And I just kind of stopped walking and I looked at him and I said, there's no better feeling than knowing that you're helping somebody. There's not an amount of money. There's not a drink or anything that can make you feel the way that you feel when you're volunteering some of yourself to help another person or company like that. And he agreed, of course. So volunteering really helps. It gives you a sense of purpose because we've talked about it before on the show, Luann. You're going to retire. You're going to turn off the faucet of income, and you need to have kind of your retirement lifestyle kind of figured out because today the job is defining a lot of people listening to the show. As of today, Luann, my job is defining me. I'm the Rocket City retirement guy on the radio and on the TV. But when I retire, I got to figure something else out. I've got to be able to recreate myself in retirement. And, you know, some of that will be doing some volunteer work. I'm not much on building stuff, so mine will have to be pretty low key volunteering that, like maybe putting together puzzles or something like that, because it won't be solving a Rubik's Cube or building a house. I can tell you that. It's just not what I do.
Know, but you're a good servant. So, you know, you're going to be able to serve in some way.
You have to be.
Yeah.
And if you work in my firm, you have to be.
Yeah.
That's the culture of our firm.
Right. It is.
You must approach it from a servant mindset, and you must have a servant heart, or you can't work here.
Right. Oh, I love that. And I worry about that too myself. I worry about retiring because I'm like, what am I going to do? How am I going to recreate myself? But that was a good reminder. I am going to serve people, serve others. I think that's so important. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
You're called to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, we are called to do that. You're right.
We're called to do that.
I know. So, if we do live a long time in retirement, people are laughing. Some of your guy clients are laughing that you have them planned out, until, in their 90s, maybe 100, and they're thinking, I'm not going to live that long. But what if we do? What kind of risks are we exposed to?
Well, first of all, so I can tend to agree with some of the sentiment and comments that I get about living a long life, and it's like, I don't want to live that long, but quality of life and all that. So that's why it's really important to take care of your body and that you're exercising, and because your body will break down. That's what it's designed to do, and so that's why I think it's important to take care of what you've been given. Because at some time your body will start to break down and the strength will drop and the flexibility kind of goes and the balance kind of goes. So working on all of that. But the problem with living a long time is that just means that you're going to have to support life for a little bit longer in terms of expenses. Now, we are believers that later in retirement, you will not spend as much. There's a lot of good research out there that actually states that. And then I've had my own personal experience, not with myself, but just watching what my grandparents did as they aged, as what Jennifer's grandparents did as they aged. You don't spend a lot. And actually, here's kind of the crazy thing. And this is hard for me to think about because we talked about pizza earlier and I'm a foodie. I can't imagine myself not eating a lot. That's what I'm trying to say. But it tends to happen. So my mom, who's aging a little bit, was talking about she's not eating as much as she used to. I think I've talked about it on the air before, but like my grandparents, they just stopped eating a lot. And I would go to their house and they would have little Debbie oatmeal patties, which are amazing still
You
today.
loved, yeah.
Yeah, but now they're like the size of a quarter because of shrinkflation. They're not big
Right.
at all. Yeah, so I'd go over there, they'd have all this food, and then as they aged, they just didn't have a lot of food and they didn't eat a lot and they didn't weigh anything. It's like, good grief, you're like withering up, Mama. You're gonna blow off the face of the earth if the wind picks up. But we are advocates knowing that you're probably going to spend less in retirement, but living longer means you have to support that. Now, as your body breaks down, this is why I say you take care of your body, because more than likely your healthcare costs are going to go up. And, when that goes up, that's going to be more expensive. So some of that lack of spending on your day-to-day living is probably going to be offset by potentially higher costs in healthcare, because we know that that's going to continue to inflate because U.S. has great healthcare, but also has very expensive healthcare. And if you encounter long-term care, so on and so forth. So that's the downside to living longer is the likelihood of you needing better health or more health care, and then probably some sort of long-term care at some point.
Right. Okay. Yeah, exactly. Another big question, though, that people have are, will my loved ones be okay if something happens to me? Talk about legacy planning and estate planning. You do that.
Oh, yeah. So as far as estate planning, just to be clear, I'm not an estate planning attorney, but we work with a couple in the area that we refer out to. But yeah, so estate planning and will my loved one be okay if I pass away? It's a big deal. So in the first segment, Beth talked about Social Security, and it was almost verbatim what I normally say about making sure that spouse is protected and higher Social Security, et cetera. It's really important that when you're making these financial planning decisions, I don't care if you're 56 and you're starting to think about retirement. A lot of times you just default to the IRA or the 401k. Do I have enough? Do I have enough money saved to make it all the way through retirement? If I turn off that faucet of income, as Chris says all the time on the radio, do I have enough? But it's not just about that. It's about the other decisions that you need to make as well. So when you get to Social Security age at 62, when you can actually claim, do you resist from claiming? And do you have a strategy to make sure that if you die early, your spouse is protected if you're the higher income earner? So you want to make sure that you're thinking about, your retirement, but also keeping in mind the spouse and making sure that any decisions that you make, will they have a positive impact on that surviving spouse when you're gone? Now, we all know that we love our spouse, or we should.
I hope so. Yeah.
I hope so. So all of those decisions need to come with, okay, is this good for both of us? And is this advantageous or going to be a positive impact if I pass away? And I think that's how you have to look at it. So real quick, if you don't have your legal documents updated, get them updated. Go see an estate attorney, that sort of thing. If you're not sure how certain assets are going to pass on to your beneficiaries, that's what we do. We kind of help coordinate the legacy side of things, making sure the assets pass on in a tax efficient manner. But the whole back end part of the plan, the estate and legacy plan, is really, really important.
Right. Okay. Let's see here. So I guess as we get older, we need to think about long-term care. I don't think people want to really talk about it and think about it, but I think a couple needs to have that discussion. So how do you guys approach that? You're sitting there talking about retirement and having a great old time, all the things they're going to do. And then, you got to maybe plan on that because that could be an expense.
Yeah, no, it can. And I think when you think about like long-term care in general, I think the stats are about 70% of people are going to need it. So it doesn't mean that 70 people are going to end up in the nursing home, but people are going to need long-term care to some degree. So you might need someone kind of assisting with those daily activities of daily living. But one of the things that I want to mention just real quick on healthcare in general, just kind of talking about not necessarily long-term care, just healthcare in general, about 66, this is according to the Journal of Public Health, about 66% of bankruptcies are tied to medical bills. believe it or not. This is in 2019 when the study was.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's another one here that talks about from the National Institute of Health. Medical bills account for about 40%. So you could safely say that somewhere between 40 and 60% of bankruptcies occur due to medical. And so that just goes to show you that making good healthcare choices is really, really important. But then when you get into long-term care, it's really expensive. I mean, the average cost in Huntsville, depending on where you stay for like skilled care, is probably going to be between $70,000 and $90,000 on average. And again, it depends on where you stay. I get all that, but it's important that if you don't have long-term care, that you figure out how you're going to fund that. And maybe you self-fund. Maybe you have multi-million dollars and you're going to take some of that and you're going to self-fund. All that's fine. But one of the things I think people should start doing is looking at long-term care a little bit earlier. So there are some pretty unique products out there today. Matter of fact, I'm going to be applying for one actually really, really soon because I'm 51 and it's time for me to start thinking about that.
Yeah.
So there's some life insurance products that are life insurance, but they have riders on them that will allow you to accelerate that death benefit in the need of long-term care. And I think for families that are, say, my age, 50 to say 55, it's probably a good idea to start looking at that as an option because it's maybe in some cases you still need some additional life insurance. Like we're in a position where I don't know that we really need a whole lot of life insurance, but if I can get a policy that's life insurance and the premium doesn't increase and I can use it for long-term care later down the road and I can pick it up, like I said, at age 51 for me, then I'm going to get it at a lot better rate than if I wait until I'm 60 or 65. Because what we see at the office and what we run into is people will come in, 65-year-old couple, and they'll say, yeah, we're interested in some long-term care also. And I'm like, okay, here's the price. And it's like, whoa, it's like sticker shock because it's really expensive.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, they've had a family member go through it and they know that they need it. They know it's important, but then it becomes a pretty heavy line item on the budget. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy it and I'm going to put it on a 10 or a 15 pay, meaning it's going to be paid up in 10 or 15 years. And I'm not going to have that payment in retirement. So there are a lot of, I don't want to say names on the air, but there are people that do radio nationally syndicated and they say, oh, don't worry about long-term care until you're 60. And I completely disagree with that because it's just gotten more expensive. The fact of the matter is we're probably going to need it in some capacity. So I'm going to start looking at it earlier because I'm in the industry. I've seen things happen. I've seen things happen to my family members. I've had family members in the nursing home. I've had them pass away in the nursing home. So I see all of this and I don't want to be a burden on my children. And I want to have a policy where I can use it towards that if need be. Now, if you have a policy, then and you have IRA money, there's some tax planning type stuff that can be done there too. And I don't have time to get into that because I just looked at the clock. It's 28.
We're done.
28 minutes and we're on the back half of the show. And
yep.
I got to start wrapping it up. So, Luann, it was a great show.
It was a great show.
Fun.
Thank you, as always, for your wisdom. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. And on the food tips as well. So, I hope everybody enjoyed it. Have an awesome and blessed week. Let me give our number out real quick. It's 256-937-2010. If you want to come in for a discovery session, sit down with me, go over your retirement plan, dreams, goals, whatever you want to talk about. We can definitely make that happen. 256-937-2010. Again, I hope everybody has an awesome and blessed week. And remember to serve every person in every situation with a servant heart.
Net Worth Advisors, LLC, nor Beth Andrews are affiliated with WG Financial Group or AEWM. Beth Andrews is a CPA who can offer tax advice. WG Financial nor its agents or representatives may give tax or legal advice.
AE Wealth Management, LLC provides services without regards to religious affiliation, and the views of individual advisors are not necessarily the views of AE Wealth Management.
Please remember that converting an employer plan account to a Roth IRA is a taxable event. Increased taxable income from the Roth IRA conversion may have several consequences. Be sure to consult with a qualified tax advisor before making any decisions regarding your IRA.
Investment advisory products and services made available through AE Wealth Management, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Insurance products are offered through the insurance business WG Insurance Services. WG Financial Group is an investment advisory practice that offers products and services through AE Wealth Management, LLC, a registered investment advisor. AEWM does not offer insurance products. Insurance products offered by WG Insurance Services are not subject to investment investment advisor requirements. AEWM and WG Insurance Services are not affiliated companies. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual's situation. WG Financial Group is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by WG Financial Group. This radio show is a paid placement.